Hi, welcome to the Tow Club Industry Podcast. My name is Art, founder at Tow Club. We're going to be discussing relevant events and needs of the towing industry, and I'm hoping to bring some valuable content to you so that you can do the best job picking your vendors, do the best job looking for solutions that would help your towing business thrive, in addition to having discussions about what the latest technology can bring to the industry. As many of you know, I'm a tower myself, and I've been involved with some software development teams over the past many years, trying to bring some of these technologies to the industry. So I would appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll be having various guests on. We'll be discussing many things that are relevant to the industry, and I can't emphasize this enough. I'd love for everybody to tune in. So I talk to towers all the time, and one of the things that they tell me is like sort of what's happening to the industry. So there's obviously a lot of things that are happening. You're talking about rising costs, the rising costs of labor, the rising costs of providing benefits to your valuable labor, the rising costs of equipment, the rising cost of real estate, which you need for your storage facilities. So I'd like to discuss some mitigation strategies in the future concerning some of these costs, and we think that we're going to have guests that provide some very valuable content for that. Yet another thing that is often discussed in towing groups, I'm involved in a lot of the towing groups on social media. I like to comment, share ideas, and really just conversate with other towers. But one of the hot topics is proposed legislative changes. This makes towers very nervous, depending on the municipality, whether it's a city, a town, a county, a state, or federal laws, but they all can affect towers in different ways. And oftentimes these legislative changes are some kind of the source of a lot of arguments and bickering and back and forth between towers about what's good, what's not good, who it will affect, who it won't affect, etc. So, I think operators kind of have to follow and be aware. I think our future guests that we're going to have on this podcast are going to shed some very valuable light on some of these subjects, and they're going to weigh in, and we're going to have meaningful conversations surrounding that. I think towers need to be prepared for these changes. So whether or not you agree with some of these changes, many of them will probably become a reality, and it will be incumbent on us as towers to be aware of what they are, how to prepare our businesses for them. You really need to follow the podcast to learn more. So I touched on social media a little bit earlier. And one of the things I learned in all of my years on social media, following the towing industry, talking to towers, arguing with towers, getting cursing at towers. But one of the valuable things I learned is that we're not a monolith. And, I know I've touched on this before, but towers are all different. Me personally, my towing business exclusively provides private property towing services to the property management industry. But there are towers who don't do that at all. And there are towers who only service the motor club industry. There are towers who only service law enforcement. There are towers who service everybody. Some towers service heavy duty towing. Some, only work for the marine unit. They may live in a beach community. I mean, there's just so many different types. And there's also different sizes of towers. You've got small towers. Some guys, it's just them and they drive their truck and they're on call all the time. And that's the type of service they provide. You've got your medium towers, 2 to let's say 10, 15, 20 employees. And then, of course, your large towers. Some of them have many employees who are family members with one another. Some not. There's all different needs and wants among these various different types of towers. The important thing to remember is that all types of towers can benefit from the awareness that we're trying to raise about what the threats to the industry are. That's what's really important here. So it's not so much, if you do this type of towing, you're less likely or more likely to be successful or unsuccessful as a result of proposed changes that are coming. But the fact is that we can all benefit from this. So we all need to be plugged in and you all need to be watching me. And I feel as though we're going to have meaningful content. So hopefully you can follow along. One of the things that I would like to convey to everybody that's watching is what type of guests to sort of expect on this program. So, you know, I'll blurt out some types here so that you all can understand sort of what we're aiming to do here. So one type of guest that we plan to have is equipment suppliers. And in my conversations with towers, one of the first things they often bring up is the dramatic increase in the cost of equipment. And while that's true, I don't think it's meaningful for towers to be bickering with one another over why this is the case. I'd like to hear this from the horse's mouth. So we do plan to have some prominent tow truck builders and or equipment suppliers on this program to discuss what has happened, what has led to some of these increases, how they're mitigating some of the increases, because although, yes, we have experienced increases, and I can attest to this, I would like to know why. I would like to know, to have a meaningful conversation about, why this happened, when it started, the role perhaps that COVID played in this or didn't play in this, because there's a lot of bad information circulating out there. I would like to get to the bottom of it. I'd also like to have some industry partners on here as guests to talk about, to shed some light on, what the differences are between the towers. For example, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a tower that predominantly does private property towing. This doesn't necessarily give me the best insight as to what another tower may be experiencing who does a different type of towing. So that information to me would be valuable. And I think to a lot of towers would like to see, hey, let's say, for example, there's a guy out there that does heavy duty towing exclusively. I'd like to know what issues they're facing. And so these industry partners, because they service the industry, in many cases, all types of the industry, I feel like they can really shed some light on this and talk about these issues so that we can all sort of have a group setting and have a meaningful discussion about this. I would also, and I'm really looking forward to this. This is probably one of my most interesting potential guests, and that's the law enforcement industry. I would like the law enforcement community, I should say, I would like them to participate on this podcast, and we plan to do that because they are probably best equipped to explain the nature of the relationship between the law enforcement, the different jurisdictions in law enforcement and the towing industry. We do, in this industry, have to work together with law enforcement. And oftentimes, and I'm sure all the towers that are watching this have seen varying news articles. This town's police department is unhappy with the towing service, so they're going after them, or there's a bid dispute of some sort. So I'd like to get someone from the law enforcement community on here so that we can have these discussions. I think it would be meaningful content. There are many trade associations in our country in relation to the towing industry. So that typically they're at the state level. And these state level trade associations, these would be valuable guests on our program as well. They could talk about what they're doing for the industry, whether it's providing training, whether it's providing, lobbying efforts to work in conjunction with the government to help figure out what sort of changes are appropriate or inappropriate and how to best help the towing industry and the motoring public. I'd also like to have towers of various types on the podcast. Many have reached out to me and have shown some interest in discussing, what they do. And obviously, I'm looking for towers that have been around for some time, that have a significant portion of the market share in their markets, so they can discuss some of the challenges at scale. They can discuss some of the challenges that they've had getting to that point. Many towers I talk to, they're small and mid-sized, but they all have aspirations. They'd all like to have a larger share of the market. They would all like to run a better business, perhaps reduce their costs, and learn how to sort of have more time with their family. I know that I've struggled with that with the amount that I work, but I feel as though having towers on the program would be helpful. And I do also plan to have some guests on the program that have been victims of towing misconduct. And I knew that having this discussion with you all would elicit some concerned responses. But if the towing industry is going to seriously undertake the task of self-regulation, or at least claim that they can self-regulate, I think it's best to hear from people that have been victimized by towing misconduct. And I find, or at least I hope to find, that those conversations will be meaningful and perhaps even help a random tower who's unaware that what he may be doing or may not be doing could potentially harm somebody, and how to take corrective action and what it means for the rest of the industry. So again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. And to those of you that know me who are watching this for the first time, you better follow me because I will see you one day. But I hope that this content you find meaningful. And I also hope that, for those of you who don't know me, that you understand that, I think this content will hopefully be able to help towers of all types and learn from each other's experiences. There isn't necessarily always a right and wrong in the dissemination of this content, but it's a learning thing. Again, experiences from each other. I did something, and this was the result, and we're hoping that somebody else doesn't perhaps make that same mistake. So again, follow us: YouTube, Instagram, iTunes, Facebook, Spotify, LinkedIn. Please comment, please like, and most importantly, please subscribe. Stay tuned. In about 10 days or so, episode 2 will drop, and you will have a smile on your face. Thanks again for watching. And please remember, if you're not willing to know, don't tow.